Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling, well, a truly monumental topic.
Yeah.
The Egyptian pyramids.
Monumental is definitely the word.
These structures, they're just the physical embodiment of ancient ambition, aren't they? Incredible logistics, staggering faith. We want to move past the usual overview today.
Right. Go deeper.
Exactly. We're analyzing the architectural origins, really unlocking the specific engineering secrets, and trying to decode the profound religious drive behind it all. How did this civilization mobilize, well, everything to build these things?
And it's such a vital mission, because even though we found over 130 pyramids explored for 300 years, they're still wrapped in these complex, unsolved mysteries. Egypt is arguably the richest archaeological source on Earth, but the pyramids, their scale, their precision, they just defy easy answers.
So this deep dive is more like a technical investigation.
Absolutely. We're drawing from sources, giving us a front row seat to modern archaeology, following the people on the ground, making discoveries that rewrite history.
You have to think about the Great Pyramid of Khufu as the benchmark, right? Tallest thing on Earth for, 38 centuries?
An unbelievable length of time.
And the only ancient wonders still standing. The core question, the thing that really needs a deep dive, isn't just what they built, but how. How did a civilization without iron tools, without, the wheel as we think of it, achieve such near-perfect mathematical accuracy?
That's the complexity gap. The thing that still baffles us.
And that's what we want to try and close today.
Precisely. We're diving into excavation details all the way from that very first stone structure back in the 3rd dynasty at Saqqara
Right.
to the latest decoding of sacred texts found deep inside later pyramids. We'll hit the big engineering riddles, the logistics of moving millions of tons of stone, and ultimately try to unveil the spiritual purpose that demanded this immense national effort. Every detail matters here.
Okay, let's kick things off. To really unpack this history, we have to start about 10 miles south of Giza.
At Saqqara.
Exactly. The necropolis of Saqqara. It's much more than just a cemetery, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really the conceptual birthplace, the revolutionary starting point for the whole pyramid idea.
It really is. Saqqara is huge. You've got 11 pyramids there, hundreds of tombs for nobles. But the one structure that changed everything is the step pyramid.
Pharaoh Djoser's tomb. 3rd dynasty, so over 4,500 years ago?
That's right. And the thing people often miss, just looking at it, is that the step pyramid was the first monumental building made entirely of stone, anywhere in the world.
Wow. Okay, so that's not just a step up. It's a massive technological leap.
Absolutely unprecedented at the time.
Which basically makes it the blueprint for all the Egyptian engineering that followed.
Yeah.
And that brings us straight to the genius behind it. Imhotep.
Imhotep, a fascinating figure.
He wasn't royalty, not even nobility, right? Started as a commoner.
Born a commoner, yes, but clearly brilliant. He rose incredibly fast to become Djoser's most trusted advisor, high priest, and, crucially, his chief architect.
It really shows how much the Old Kingdom must have valued sheer skill and intellect.
It does, and Imhotep's big innovation. Well, conceptually, it sounds simple, but in practice, it changed the world. He decided to invent this stepped design.
How did he do that?
By ditching the traditional mud bricks they used for earlier tombs, which, degrade over time, and switching to massive, durable stone blocks.
Oh, okay. Stone lets you build bigger, higher, more permanently.
Exponentially so. Greater height, much greater stability. His impact was just enormous. I mean, think about it. More than 2,000 years after he died, people were still worshiping him as a god.
A god of medicine and wisdom, right?
Yes, even into Greek and Roman times. That kind of lasting reverence for an architect, a commoner originally, is incredibly rare.
So if we look at the step pyramid's design, its DNA, you can see the inspiration from older structures, these mastabas.
You absolutely can. The mastaba was the standard tomb for royalty or nobles before Imhotep. Sort of a squat, rectangular platform, usually mud brick, with walls sloping inwards.
Functional, but limited.
Very limited in size and scope. Imhotep's genius was looking at that and thinking, okay, I can build one of these. What if I build a slightly smaller one on top and another on top of that?
Oh, like stacking boxes.
Essentially, yes. 6 successive mastaba-like layers, one on top of the other. That's how he got the step pyramid, towering over 200 feet high. It needed 500,000 tons of limestone, all precisely cut.
And this wasn't just showing off engineering skill. It was deeply tied to beliefs about the afterlife.
Completely. Imhotep's vision for Djoser's eternal life was literally built into the architecture.
And not just the part above above ground.
No, the underground part was just as revolutionary. The complex required digging out thousands upon thousands of tons of limestone bedrock to create this whole subterranean system.
And Djoser's actual burial chamber is way down.
90 feet below the desert surface, a central burial shaft leads down to his final resting place, and it included this huge sarcophagus made of granite.
Granite, that's much tougher than limestone. And didn't they have to bring it from far away?
Hundreds of miles down the Nile, yes. A huge undertaking in itself.
And deep down there, in the tomb, that's where we find another major innovation, right? The decoration.
The stars, yes. This is where the spiritual aspect really shines. The tomb walls have these meticulously carved and painted stars. Originally, they think, gold stars on a deep blue background, like a perfect night sky.
And that wasn't just pretty decoration.
Oh, no. It was a profound religious statement. This is the very first time we see that night sky motif used in Egyptian art.
The first time. And it became standard later.
It did. It was copied in tombs for over 1,000 years after Imhotep. It symbolizes Djoser's journey to the stars after death. Think about it. He's physically buried deep underground in darkness.
Right.
But symbolically, Imhotep surrounded him with this celestial map, a guarantee of his ascent and resurrection in the heavens. It's brilliant.
It's just extraordinary then that someone who literally reshaped architecture and, the Egyptian concept of eternity could just vanish.
It is strange, isn't it? Despite this immense legacy, we've never found any trace of Imhotep's own tomb. The master architect's final resting place is still out there, somewhere.
Is the search still going on?
Very much so. Archaeologist Miroslav Barta, his work is detailed in our sources. He spent 30 years searching around the Snep Pyramid complex.
Believing he'd be buried near his greatest achievement. Makes sense.
Exactly. And they use specific clues, things like concentrations of pottery shards. Not just any pottery, but specific types, like large numbers of beer jars from Imhotep's time.
Beer jars, what do they indicate?
They can signal large-scale administrative activity, maybe worker rations, or even funerary rites and feasts. So finding a cluster points to significant activity back then.
And Barta's team did find something promising recently. A shaft.
They did. A shaft going straight down into the bedrock near the Step Pyramid. You can imagine the excitement. Could this finally be it? Imhotep's tomb.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the excitement didn't last long. When they looked closer, the entrance shaft was open.
Looters.
Ancient looters. Probably got there millennia ago. It's a common frustration for archaeologists, as Barta points out. They often feel like they're just following in the footsteps of tomb robbers from antiquity.
So even the tomb of someone foundational like Imhotep might have been plundered.
It seems likely. But the search goes on. That whole area became this sprawling, incredibly sacred city of the dead, and it all started with Imhotep's single revolutionary idea.
So Imhotep's six-step design really kicked off an architectural revolution. He said 10 more kings copied or built on that idea.
That's right. The stepped pyramid became the definitive royal statement for a while. Power, divinity, all wrapped up in stone. But later kings, especially Sneferu.
Djoser's successor. And Khufu's father.
Yes, Sneferu. He was ambitious. He wanted to refine the design, to move towards those smooth, geometrically perfect sides we see at Giza.
And that ambition led to, a famous problem. The bent pyramid.
Yes, the bent pyramid. A classic case of architectural near disaster. Sneferu was a huge builder, incredibly prolific. But his first attempt at a smooth-sided pyramid, his architects made a critical error.
What was the mistake?
They went for a really steep angle right from the base, 55 degrees. They were aiming for height, for grandeur, pure verticality.
And it worked. For a while.
It seemed to. Construction went ahead. They got up to about 150 feet, and then cracks started appearing inside the structure.
Oh, wow. That must have caused absolute panic. Do we know what went wrong?
Later analysis, geological surveys confirmed the issue. They hadn't built on solid bedrock. The foundation was resting on soft, unstable, slaty clay.
Not good for supporting millions of tons of stone.
Definitely not. The sheer weight of the pyramid pressing down caused the core to actually sink and shift. The whole thing was threatening to collapse catastrophically.
So it had to do something drastic and fast.
Imagine the pressure on those engineers. They had to pivot mid-project on this enormous scale. Their solution was ingenious, though.
They changed the angle.
Abruptly, they dropped the angle of the upper section down to 43 degrees. That's what gives the pyramid its unique bent look.
And that fixed it.
It was brilliant, really. Just by changing the angle, they instantly reduced the planned height by about 100 feet. More importantly, it cut the structure's total weight by a massive 400,000 tons.
Wow. So it stabilized the whole thing.
Saved it. And, crucially, they learned from the mistake. Sneferu's next pyramid, the Red Pyramid.
Nearby.
Yes. They built that one at a much safer, more cautious 45-degree angle from the start. And that became the oldest true smooth-sided pyramid in Egypt. They figured it out through trial and error.
And all that hard-won experience, all those lessons learned, culminated in the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza.
The absolute pinnacle.
And this structure, it's not just big, it's the precision that's just staggering. We're talking, what, 480 feet tall?
Roughly, yes. Made of about 2.3 million individual blocks.
It's weighing 50 tons. That's like a modern battle tank.
Easily. The total weight is estimated at nearly 6 million tons, which, as our sources like to point out, is like stacking 16 Empire State Buildings on top of each other.
It's almost impossible to grasp, and the accuracy.
That's the truly mind-blowing part. The base sides are around 755 feet long, the difference in length between the longest and shortest side. Less than 2 inches.
Over 755 feet. That's incredible.
And its alignment to true north is off by less than 1/20th of a degree. Modern engineers struggle to achieve that kind of precision today, even with lasers and GPS.
Okay, and the inside, the stonework.
Especially in the King's Chamber, which used that super hard granite brought from Aswan. The blocks are fitted so perfectly, so tightly, you literally cannot slide a credit card between them.
That's what you mean by the high tech of antiquity.
Yeah.
There's precision manufacturing on a monumental scale.
Exactly.
So, let's break down the how. They didn't have compasses, satellites, spirit levels like we do. How did they get that foundation so accurate? The alignment first.
Alignment and leveling were critical. For true north, the best theory involves the stars. Ancient astronomers were meticulous observers.
So they watched the night sky.
They likely focused on the circumpolar stars, the ones that circled the pole and never set below the horizon. They might have built a temporary, perfectly level, semicircular wall.
Like an artificial horizon.
Precisely. They'd mark the exact point where a specific star rose and where it set behind this wall. A line drawn exactly halfway between those 2 points would point directly, absolutely true north.
Simple in concept, but requires incredible patience and accuracy.
Breathtaking results from low-tech methods, basically.
Okay, so that's alignment. What about making sure that massive base area was perfectly flat, leveling it?
That's another ingenious bit. The prevailing theory, based on context and logic, suggests they used water.
Water. How?
They might have dug a network of shallow trenches or channels across the entire bedrock base area, maybe outlining the perimeter, and filled them with water.
Ah, because water always finds its own level.
Exactly. It acted like a giant natural spirit level, regardless of the shape of the channels. By marking the water line consistently across the whole area, they could then chip away the bedrock until it was perfectly flat relative to that water level.
That's clever. And as the pyramid went up, how did they keep the layers level?
For individual blocks and courses, they likely used simple but effective tools like A-frame levels. 2 pieces of wood joined at a right angle with a plumb line hanging from the apex. When the line hung perfectly vertical and touched a mark at the bottom, the surface below was level. Simple, reliable.
Right. Now, the materials. Getting 2.3 million blocks. Most were limestone, quarried nearby.
Yes, the bulk was local limestone, easier to work. They used copper chisels for this.
But copper's pretty soft, isn't it? How did it hold up against cutting millions of tons of stone? Wouldn't the tools wear out constantly?
You'd think so. But here's where a bit of ancient luck, or maybe know-how, comes in. Chemical analysis of the tools found something interesting.
What was that?
The copper wasn't pure. It contained small amounts of arsenic, naturally occurring perhaps in the ores they used.
And arsenic makes copper harder.
Significantly harder. It creates what's called arsenical bronze. So this accidental alloy gave the masons a much tougher, more durable tool for quarrying the limestone.
Wow, an accidental technological edge. Maybe they even figured it out and guarded this secret.
It's possible. It certainly would have helped speed things up.
Okay, but limestone is one thing. You mentioned granite for the burial chambers. Much harder.
Much, much harder. And it had to come all the way from Aswan, 600 miles south, floated down the Nile on barges.
And copper chisels, even arsenical ones, wouldn't touch granite, would they?
Virtually no effect. So they had to use a different, incredibly laborious technique.
Which was?
Abrasion. Slow, patient grinding. They used toothless copper saws, think large saw blades, but without teeth.
What good is a toothless saw?
The saw itself didn't do the cutting. It was just a guide to hold the abrasive material in the cut. The actual cutting was done by sand, specifically quartz sand. Quartz is harder than granite, They'd pack this wet quartz sand into the cut under the copper saw blade. As teams dragged the saw back and forth, the hard quartz crystals embedded in the softer copper would slowly, painstakingly grind away the granite beneath.
That sounds incredibly slow.
The sources estimate the cutting rate at maybe 2 cubic inches per hour.
2 cubic inches an hour. Just to cut the sarcophagus inside the king's chamber.
Right.
That must have taken forever.
Estimates suggest maybe 4 months of continuous work. Teams of workers back and forth, adding sand and water constantly for months on end, just for one box. It highlights the sheer manpower and dedication involved. Patience and organization trump speed.
Right. And speaking of speed and organization, this brings us to the huge question. Lifting 2.3 million blocks, some 50 tons, up to nearly 500 feet.
The ultimate logistical challenge.
If the accepted timeline is around 20 years, calculations suggest they had to place a block every 2 minutes.
Something like 270 blocks every single day, day in, day out, for over 2 decades. It's staggering.
So how do they get them up there? How do they beat gravity? This is the big how, isn't it?
It is the question. And because the Egyptians didn't leave us blueprints labeled how to build a pyramid.
Right, no instruction manual.
This is where we get different theories, intense debate among engineers, archaeologists. Everyone agrees they must have used ramps. But what kind of ramp? That's the mystery.
Okay, let's go through the main contenders. What's the first idea?
The simplest concept is the single straight ramp. Imagine a huge earthen slope, like a giant highway, leading directly up one face of the pyramid. It gets longer and higher as the pyramid grows.
Seems logical. What's the problem?
Scale. To reach the top of Khufu's pyramid at a manageable slope, say 10 degrees, that ramp would need to be almost a mile long. It would contain more material, more volume than the pyramid itself.
Wow, and then you'd have to dismantle that mile-long ramp afterwards.
Exactly. A massive job in itself. And we find no archaeological evidence for such a colossal structure or its removal. It just seems logistically impractical within that 20-year time frame.
Okay, so the straight ramp is probably out. What's theory number 2?
The spiral ramp. This suggests a ramp that corkscrews around the outside of the pyramid, wrapping around all 4 faces as it goes up.
That solves the size problem, right? The ramp itself could be narrower.
It does, but it creates a different headache for the builders. How do you maintain the pyramid's precise angles and dimensions when the corners and faces are constantly covered by this winding ramp? Surveying becomes incredibly difficult. Imagine trying to check the alignment from a curving, sloping surface.
Tricky. Easy to lose that incredible precision.
Very easy. So that leads us to the third main theory, the one that's gained a lot of ground recently.
Which is?
The internal ramp theory. This idea proposes that maybe after the first, say, 100 feet or so, the builders switched tactics. They started building ramps inside the body of the pyramid itself.
Inside. How would that work?
Picture a sort of tunnel or corridor just beneath the outer casing stones, spiraling upwards within the pyramid structure. They'd haul the blocks up through this internal passageway.
Why is that theory so compelling now?
A few reasons. There's some evidence from smaller, later pyramids that might hint at this. And importantly, it solves most of the problems. The ramp material becomes part of the pyramid, no need to dismantle it. The outer faces remain clear, allowing for continuous, accurate surveying of the angles and lines. It just seems like a more elegant engineering solution.
Has scanning found evidence of this inside Khufu's pyramid?
Not definitively yet. The big void found recently could be related, but we don't know. But the internal ramp theory offers the most plausible explanation currently for how they could maintain speed, logistics, and precision all the way to the top.
Whichever ramp they used, it required incredible organization. And that brings us to the workers themselves. We absolutely have to address the old myth, the Hollywood image, of slaves building the pyramids.
Yes, we do. That idea, which goes all the way back to the Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BCE, well, modern archaeology has pretty conclusively shown it's wrong.
Wrong. How do we know?
Through the work of archaeologists like Zahi Hawass and Mark Leaner, they actually excavated the tombs of the pyramid builders found right there near the Giza plateau.
And these weren't the graves of slaves?
Not at all. These were proper tombs, strategically placed near the sacred pyramids. That implies honor and status, not the anonymous mass graves you'd expect for enslaved people.
What did the forensic evidence, the skeletons themselves, tell us about their lives?
A lot. First, they were Egyptians, not foreign captives. They seem to have been part of a dedicated, skilled workforce, professional craftsmen, stonemasons, engineers, officials.
And they were treated well.
incredibly well for the time. Analysis of their bones shows they ate very well, lots of protein, meat, fish, far better than the average peasant farmer's diet.
And medical care.
This is really telling. They found skeletons with bones that had been broken and then properly set and fully healed, evidence of sophisticated medical care. They even found skulls showing signs of successful early forms of brain surgery.
Brain surgery. On workers.
Yes. This wasn't basic first aid. This was high-quality medical attention, the kind you'd only give to valuable, essential members of society. These were skilled, compensated laborers, maybe supplemented by villagers doing a kind of national service, like a rotating duty, but definitely not slaves whipped into submission. They were respected builders of a national sacred project. So we've talked about the how, the incredible engineering, the logistics, the skilled workforce, but none of that happens without a powerful why. And the why behind the pyramids is entirely rooted in profound spiritual beliefs.
The Egyptian worldview, right? Focused on cycles, rebirth.
Exactly. Think about the Nile flooding predictably every year, bringing fertility back to the land. That cycle was fundamental. And then you have the core myth of Osiris, the god of the afterlife.
The one who was killed, dismembered, and then resurrected by Isis.
Right. His story guaranteed that rebirth, resurrection was possible, even after death. But it required certain steps.
Which is where mummification comes in. It wasn't just about preserving the body.
It was about ensuring the physical vessel, the body, survived so that the person's spiritual elements, the ba, the soul, and the ka, the life force, had a place to return to, a home to re-inhabit for eternity. It was their form of cryonics, almost.
And the pyramid's architecture itself was designed to support this journey. You mentioned placing Djoser deep underground.
Right, 90 feet down. That wasn't just for security against tomb robbers, although that was a factor. Ritually, it placed him physically in the underworld, the Duat, the realm you had to pass through.
So the pyramid structure above ground acted as the launch pad.
Precisely. It was the machine, the celestial ramp, the stairway to heaven, designed to facilitate the king's soul ascending from the underworld to join the gods, particularly the sun god Ra. But stone and structure weren't enough. You needed sacred knowledge, too.
The instructions for the journey. And that's where the pyramid texts come in.
Exactly. Archaeologists like Cristel Alvarez study these texts. They aren't found in the earliest pyramids like Djoser's, but appear later, inscribed deep inside tombs from the 5th and 6th dynasties, like Pharaoh Ibis' tomb.
These are actual hieroglyphic inscriptions on the tomb walls.
Yes, fragments and long passages covering the walls of the burial chambers and corridors. And they are incredibly important. They represent the oldest known body of religious writing from ancient Egypt, found in about 11 pyramids, mostly at Saqqara.
And they fundamentally change what the inside of the pyramid is, don't they? It's not just a secure box.
Not at all. The texts transform the stone chamber into a dynamic, magical space. They contain specific spells, rituals, prayers, protective charms, but also, crucially, navigational advice for the pharaoh's soul in the afterlife.
Like a guidebook to the dangers of the underworld.
You could think of it that way, a cosmic instruction manual. Spells to overcome demons, passwords to get past gateways, pleas to the gods. They were designed to ensure the dead king could navigate the perils and maintain his divine status as a powerful spirit.
Alvarez found a particularly large collection in one tomb, Pepi II.
Yes. Pepi II's pyramid contains the most extensive collection known, and among those texts, she found one of the oldest versions of a really critical spell, the ferryman spell.
The ferryman, like Charon in Greek myth.
Similar concept. This spell is an invocation, a demand, addressed to Nemti, the divine ferryman, often depicted with a falcon's head. The king needs Nemti to carry his soul across the treacherous waters of the underworld, the symbolic, chaotic river separating the world of the living from the eternal realm of the sun god Ra.
And carving this spell directly onto the burial chamber walls.
It was meant to magically activate it, to guarantee the king could make that essential crossing. It gives the whole pyramid complex an active ritual function long after the burial.
This need for navigating the afterlife for ritual protection, it brings us back to Imhotep's original design at Saqqara, specifically that huge trench surrounding the step pyramid complex.
Ah, yes, the Great Trench, or dry moat. Kamil Karaskovich has done fascinating work excavating it. It's enormous, 130 feet wide, 65 feet deep. Initially, many just assumed it was the quarry where they got the stone for the pyramid.
Makes sense, but Karaskovich found something inside that changed that interpretation.
He did. Deep within the trench walls, his team discovered a hidden tunnel. Not just a random cavity, but a tunnel leading directly towards the step pyramid.
Okay. And inside the tunnel?
At the end of the tunnel, carefully placed inside a cylindrical container, they found a huge wooden harpoon.
A harpoon? Like for hunting hippos?
Similar shape, but this was clearly ceremonial, far too large and cumbersome for actual hunting. And crucially, it dated right back to Imhotep's time.
So, a ritual harpoon in a hidden tunnel in the trench.
Huh?
What did Kriskevich conclude?
He realized the trench wasn't just a quarry.
Yeah.
It was symbolic. He described it as a three-dimensional model of the road into the afterlife.
The path the king's spirit had to travel.
Exactly. It represented the journey.
Yeah.
And the harpoon, that was a magical weapon. It was ritually placed there to help the king defeat the enemies he would encounter on his journey through the underworld, maybe supernatural serpents like Apophis, the embodiment of chaos who tried to swallow the sun god each night.
So the whole complex, trench included, was a giant magical machine fortified against evil.
A highly sophisticated one, yes, designed to ensure the king's successful ascent.
And there was that other finding in the trench, much later burials. Teenagers.
Yes, a poignant detail. The team found these simple mummified burials tucked into niches in the trench walls. But radiocarbon dating showed they were from much, much later periods, centuries after Imhotep in the Old Kingdom.
So people were being buried there long after the pyramid was built. What does that tell us?
It shows just how incredibly sacred that place remained. In Imhotep's time, only the absolute elite could be buried close to the pharaoh. But centuries later, ordinary people clearly still saw this area, Imhotep's creation, as such a powerful, holy spot that they desperately wanted to be buried there too, hoping to gain some spiritual benefit, some proximity to the divine power established by Djoser and Imhotep. It speaks volumes about the enduring sanctity of the site. So while the hunt for Imhotep himself continues, Miroslav Barda's work near the Step Pyramid did lead to identifying another key figure from that groundbreaking era. Even though, again, the tomb they found had already been hit by robbers.
Right, you mentioned the limestone sarcophagus was broken into, the mummy disturbed.
Uh-huh.
Just a sad pile of bones left.
Yes, looters typically went straight for the personal jewelry, the gold. But thankfully, they often left behind other important clues. In this case, essential burial equipment survived, things like canopic jars used for the organs.
Which still confirmed the owner was high status.
Definitely. But the real breakthrough came not from the burial chamber itself, but from the small chapel, the mastaba structure built above it. Barda found graffiti there.
Graffiti, left by the original builders.
Exactly. Red painted marks, symbols scrawled onto the stone blocks by the masons during construction. These weren't meant to be seen later, just practical notes for positioning the blocks.
Like ancient assembly instructions. What did the symbols say?
They included hieroglyphs representing Ta and Where, and significantly, some were upside down or sideways.
Why is that important?
It shows the builder's practical mindset. They painted the mark, maybe in the quarry or workshop, and once the block was in place, they didn't care if the symbol was oriented correctly or not. Its job was done. But for archaeologists, these casual marks are gold.
So they could translate Ptah and Where.
Yes. The translation confirmed the tomb belonged to a man named Ta Where.
And who was Ptah Where? What was his job?
He was a very high-ranking official in Djoser's time. His titles identified him as a master craftsman, specifically a sculptor, but also the overseer responsible for manufacturing and transporting precious stone vessels for the king. He'd led major expeditions to quarries to get materials.
So another key figure involved in the massive building projects, carrying on Imhotep's legacy of sophisticated stonework.
Exactly. And finding his tomb, confirming his identity, and his high status rewarded with burial near the sacred step pyramid, it reinforces our understanding of the Old Kingdom system. It valued and rewarded its top technical experts, its master builders and officials. It wasn't just the pharaoh, there was a whole skilled hierarchy making it happen.
Okay, so one identity revealed. But turning back to the most famous pyramid, Khufu's Great Pyramid, it still holds on to its secrets, doesn't it? Particularly those 4 narrow shafts.
Ah, the shafts, only about 8 inches wide, climbing up at steep angles from the king's and queen's chambers.
For a long time, people just thought they were ventilation shafts, right? Air for the workers during construction.
There was a simple explanation, but it didn't quite add up why seal them off at both ends if they were for air. Then came the work of Robert Bouval.
His theory was very different.
Completely different. Bouval proposed they weren't vents at all. He meticulously checked their angles and found they aligned with remarkable precision to key stars, stars that were central to Egyptian religious beliefs about the afterlife.
This is the astroglyphics idea. Stars as symbols.
Exactly. The southern shaft from the king's chamber pointed directly at Al-Nitak, the brightest star in Orion's belt, which the Egyptians associated with the god Osiris. The southern shaft from the queen's chamber pointed at Sirius, the star of the goddess Isis.
And the northern shaft.
They pointed towards the circumpolar stars, the ones that never set, which the Egyptians called the imperishables, symbolizing eternity. So Boval argued these shafts weren't for air. They were symbolic passageways, aligned like a celestial map, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul towards these specific divine destinations after death.
A much more profound purpose, and this theory got even more interesting when we could actually look inside them, with robots.
Yes, in the 1990s and again in the early 2000s, small robotic probes were sent up the shafts originating from the Queen's chamber, the lower ones.
And what did they find?
Something tantalizing. After traveling about 200 feet up the narrow passage, the robots encountered doors, sealed limestone blocks, barring the way. One shaft even had a second door behind the first.
Doors.
With handles.
Small copper fittings that look like handles, yes. Clearly intentional barriers. They suggest these shafts don't just end, they lead somewhere. Perhaps to hidden chambers or compartments, areas unseen for 4,500 years.
Wow. What could be behind them? That's one of the great unknowns. Absolutely. And then the mystery deepened again just a few years ago, in 2017.
With the Scam Pyramids project, using modern physics.
Exactly. They used a technique called muon tomography. Muons are cosmic ray particles that rain down on Earth constantly. By measuring how many muons pass through the pyramid from different angles, they can detect density differences inside, basically X-raying the structure without drilling.
And they found something unexpected.
They found something massive and unexpected, a large void, a previously unknown empty space located above the Grand Gallery, that huge soaring corridor leading towards the king's chamber.
How big is this void?
It's estimated to be roughly 30 meters long, that's nearly 100 feet and maybe 4 meters high, like a hidden annex or corridor, parallel to the Grand Gallery. Its function is completely unknown.
A whole hidden section inside the Great Pyramid. That must have fueled speculation.
Instantly. It reignited the long-held belief among some archaeologists and researchers that maybe, just maybe, Khufu's actual burial chamber, the ultimate one, hasn't been found yet. That it might still be hidden somewhere deep inside the pyramid's core, perfectly sealed, untouched by looters. The void could be part of the access to it or related somehow.
It's incredible that after all this time, all of this study, there could still be major secrets hidden within the most famous structure on Earth.
It really highlights the core puzzle, that dissonance we talked about. We have all this data, we understand the context, but the question still hangs there. How did a civilization of, yes, highly organized but still fundamentally Bronze Age farmers create structures of such unbelievable complexity and precision that they continue to mystify us?
And why did they basically stop building them on this scale after just a few centuries? Was it economics, religion changing?
We don't fully know. Did they deplete resources? Did the theology shift away from these massive monuments towards, say, the text-focused protections we see in the Valley of the Kings later? It's a huge transition.
And because that gap between their known technology and the final product is so wide, it leaves room for, well, other ideas.
Yeah.
We have to at least touch on the alternative theories, the pyramidology.
You have to acknowledge it because it shows how much these structures challenge our assumptions. Ever since the 19th century, people have looked for hidden codes, theories linking the pyramid's proportions to pi or the golden ratio, suggesting some lost, advanced mathematical knowledge.
There was the old idea they were Joseph's granaries from the Bible.
That one persisted for a long time. And then, of course, in the more modern era, you get the paleo-contact theories.
Ancient astronauts.
Popularized by writers like Erich von Däniken, the idea that humans couldn't possibly have done this alone, so extraterrestrials must have helped. Maybe with laser chisels or sonic drills or atomic hammers, as he put it.
Now, mainstream science, archaeology, firmly rejects those ideas, right? The evidence points to human builders, a funerary purpose.
Overwhelmingly, yes. The worker tombs, the surrounding funerary complexes, the religious texts found inside later pyramids, it all points to them being sophisticated tombs and resurrection machines built by Egyptians for their pharaohs. But the sheer scale and precision, the unanswered questions about construction, the existence of those sealed doors, and the newly discovered void. It means even mainstream science has to keep an open mind. As the sources emphasize, if truly undeniable evidence emerged from behind those doors, say Khufu's intact mummy or evidence of unknown technology, science would have to adjust its view. The pyramids remain this profound anomaly, this incredible blend of relatively simple tools and staggering intellectual achievement. So we've journeyed, haven't we? From Imhotep's first revolutionary step in stone at Saqqara, all the way to Khufu's Great Pyramid, this cosmic machine aligned with the stars. And what we've really uncovered, I think, is that these pyramids were so much more than just tombs. They were incredibly sophisticated, technologically advanced gateways to eternity. They were triumphs of human ingenuity, yes, but also of staggering logistical organization, and driven by this incredibly deep, singular spiritual commitment.
Built by Egyptians, skilled, respected, well-compensated craftsmen.
Absolutely. They were built for immortality, for eternity, and,
Uh-huh.
in their enduring presence, their continuing mystery, they've pretty much achieved it, haven't they?
They really have. And this deep dive shows that every part of them held meaning. Every centimeter mattered. From that ritual harpoon buried in the trench to fight underworld demons,
Right.
to the specific spells carved on the inner walls to guarantee the king's safe passage and ascent, it's clear this entire nation, its economy, its brightest minds were mobilized for decades, all focused on this one theological goal.
It really represents this unique defining moment, a point in history where pretty much all available national resources and intellectual power were laser-focused on solving the problem of eternal life for their divine ruler.
So let's leave you, the listener, with a final thought on that. If the greatest minds, the entire economy of the Old Kingdom, could dedicate decades to building this complex singular gateway, all to ensure the pharaoh's eternal life and godhood, what equivalent project today, something spanning maybe 2 decades, mobilizing global resources and intellect? What would we dedicate that level of singular focus to, purely for the concept of eternal remembrance or ultimate meaning?
It's a powerful question. What truly commands that kind of unified long-term ambition in our world?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.